Hello and welcome to the Mom Project's Mentored Power Hour. My name is Cassie Manning. I'm an Associate Program Manager for the RISE program here at the Mom Project, and I am so excited to moderate today's discussion with the Chief People Officer of VTS, Margaretta Noonan. Margaretta is an accomplished executive with over 30 years of experience as a people and talent leader in SaaS and public technology companies. She has a proven track record of scaling culture for high growth companies. Prior to VTS, Margaretta led her own human resources people consulting practice, and prior to that, she led HR for several high-growth global public companies, including Monster and Hudson. Margaretta, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Cassie. I'm so excited to be doing this.
We are excited as well. So for our audience, if you have questions throughout the conversation, please drop those in the chat and we will leave some time at the end of today's session to answer a few of those. But I want to jump in. We have so much to talk about and you are such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to both VTS and hiring. So let's just start. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and where your career began and kind of what led you on your professional path?
Yeah, it's only occurred to me recently how really incredibly fortunate I was, particularly at the period that I was growing up or starting my career. Yeah, I was raised in a family with educated women. My grandmother had a college degree at a time where women didn't go to college. My mother had a PhD and worked professionally her whole life. So that's what I saw. When I started my career, I started in retail, and so I saw women at the very top. My bosses were women, and so it never occurred to me that I was less. That simply because I was a woman, I didn't deserve to be there. And so early on, I was gifted with the foundation to say, you belong. You want to do this? Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be what you can't see, right? So you saw
Right.
that. But thinking about that, so how has being a woman affected your whole professional journey, do you think?
So, I think for me, because I didn't hit kind of male-dominated organizations until mid-career, I began, as I said, with a pretty solid foundation of confidence and belief in my own competence. But it also made me really passionate about role models. And the truth about role models is people are watching us all the time. And so whether you want to be a role model or not, you are. And so if you're going to be, let's put some effort toward being a really good one, because people really are watching. Um, One of my favorite all-time quotes is from Madeleine Albright, who sadly died this week. Secretary Albright was the first female Secretary of State. She served under President Clinton. And one of the things that she is known for saying is that there is a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. And that just really resonates with me.
Yeah, I love that quote so much because it's so true, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if you're not helping out the next woman behind you, you're just doing it all wrong for sure. So I want to shift and talk about the culture at VTS. So just tell us a little bit about how VTS is revolutionizing commercial real estate and really how is the company ensuring diversity and representation and career opportunities for women, women of color, and moms?
Yeah. So the first kind of tech company I worked for was the parent company of Monster.com, and this was back in the internet bubble, and at the time when classified recruitment advertising was just shifting from newspapers to job boards. And in many ways, VTS is at a similar place in commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is one of the last industries to really embrace technology and to see all that it could be done. So the beauty of VTS as a company is we've got a real first mover advantage. We were founded 10 years ago by a couple of very highly respected New York real estate brokers. And so we understand the needs of the industry. We understand the industry. We know the power players in the space. And so we've really got a head start. From a talent attraction standpoint, we've got a couple uphill battles. Commercial real estate is dominated by white males, and so is tech. And
Mhm.
so we have got to be extra intentional, extra deliberate about trying to recruit diverse talent. And so our brilliant talent acquisition team goes out of their way to do that. And they do things like partner with groups like the Mom Project to
Mhm.
help us find a talent pool that otherwise might be invisible to us.
That's fabulous. And it really leads me into kind of my next question. What problem is VTS trying to solve as it pertains to recruiting and ensuring diversity, equity, inclusion across all company levels?
So, VTS started our DE&I journey more than 5 years ago. So this is not kind of a new thing,
Right.
and we began it to solve some internal problems. There've been a couple acquisitions, and people weren't feeling aligned to the culture. And we really, through the leadership of the person who was running this at the time, sort of found DE&I as a way to bring a common thread through our culture. Our founders are really committed to it. We just did our internal International Women's Day event a couple weeks ago, and I moderated a panel, and our CEO was one of my panelists, and our co-founder, ran a breakout room. So they are engaged and really attuned to it. I think what we want to do is make sure that we have a steady stream of diverse candidates, and our talent acquisition group takes care of that, that our people operations team really looks after the equity part. Are
Mhm.
people being treated fairly and without bias
Mhm.
within the organization? And then we've got this wonderful workplace experience team who is really trying to explore inclusivity, and particularly inclusivity around I work in the office. Well, I don't work in the office. Well, I work in the office sometimes. And how do we
Mhm.
create not the same experience for everybody, but a really good experience for
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah, an equitable experience, really
Yep.
important.
Yep.
So for those interested in being a part of VTS, can you share some insight into the application process and really what type of candidates thrive at VTS?
Yeah. So you can apply. You can go to vts.com/careers, and you can see all of the currently active roles that we've got. And after you apply, the kind of the process is it's a fairly standard process. What you'd expect. You're contacted by somebody from the talent acquisition team, and they begin to explore your desires, your needs, your background. What are you looking for? And if there's a match, we continue on with further conversations. Meet the hiring manager, meet people on the team, have a chance to understand VTS and have VTS understand you.
Mhm.
And then one of the features that I love about our hiring process is every single person goes through what we call a values interview with somebody from another team internally. We care about our values, and so we want to make sure that everybody that comes into the organization knows what they are, is aligned to them, wants to work in a culture that values those sorts of things. In terms of successful candidates, obviously skills matter. We're a tech
Mhm.
company, and so
Sure.
if you're an engineer, you got to be able to code,
Right.
and if you're an accountant, you got to be able to count. So that kind of stuff matters. But even more so, it is, are you aligned with our values? Do you understand our mindset? And is that something that's going to make you feel like you want to bring your best self to work every day?
Yeah, a definite two-way street. Do we work for you? Do
Completely.
you work for us?
Yes.
So that really brings me into kind of some of the meat of this conversation. And you and I have talked about this offline about returners or people
Hmm.
re-entering the workforce after having a voluntary or involuntary break in their employment for one reason or another. And we have a lot of those women and moms and parents in our group. So let's just talk about kind of from your perspective, from the talent perspective, what can you explain how VTS is supporting women and moms in that reentry capacity?
Yeah, so we had hoped to actually launch an official returnship program this year, and we deferred it because we have a whole lot of other things going on. And And we didn't want to do it halfway. We really wanted, if we're going to do it, we want to make this successful. So it's still on our plate, but we haven't officially launched yet. In the meantime, we've got an awful lot of stuff. So we have a parents ERG, the employee resource group, that's really pretty active, and they do a couple things. They provide peer-to-peer support, and I am not on that Slack channel, but I can imagine the Slacks that people help each other with within that. They also provide sort of suggestions and guidance for the company, and we recently got a list from that group with, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this, that we're exploring? So it's sort of helping us with continuous improvement. We've got a real a flexible workforce, and prior to 2020, what that meant was you can flex your hours. We've got some core hours or some core projects, and you need to be around for that, but work out what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, the world changed, and we all went home, and we worked on Zoom for a couple years, and now we're trying to figure out how we come back, and who comes back, and who wants to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we did late last year was we announced sort of what the return to office program for VTS looks like. Now, remember, 95% of our revenue comes out of commercial real estate. So we will always prioritize being in an office. And we can't say to our clients, yep, you guys go ahead, have fun leasing that space. We're not coming.
Yeah.
So, office matters to us,
Mm-hmm.
but so does providing the right environment for everybody. And not everybody thrives in an office, can be in an office, needs to be in an office.
Right.
So we set out a program where every employee with their manager sort of makes their own choice. You can choose at office, which means you come into whatever your hub office is at least 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
At flex, which is less than that, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, a few times a month. And then we have at home, which means I'm not coming into an office. Maybe I'll come to an event every now and then, but don't expect to see me except in a little box on your screen. And that was received so well, because I think after almost 2 years of feeling like the world was just dumping on us,
Right.
suddenly I've got agency. I get to pick. I get to talk to my manager and say, this is what works for me, what works for you.
Yeah.
And that sense of agency was really, really important. We're continuing, whether you are at home, at office, at flex, the flexible work arrangement. Our CEO she's a pandemic baby, so she's not quite 2 yet. And he leaves just about 5:30 every day, because
Mm-hmm.
part of his duties is to pick her up from childcare.
Right.
And so he will walk out of meetings and say, I got to go. I got to pick her up. So, we understand that. We've got a lot of young parents. We believe in hiring adults. And so we also have, as many tech companies do, an unlimited paid time off policy. You work with your manager, you get your job done. I don't care whether you take a week's vacation, 3 weeks vacation, a day's vacation.
Mm-hmm.
What works for you and your team and the people that you're working with. So I think we're trying to sort of speak to all of our employees, parents and non-parents, men and women, in ways that are individualized, as best we can.
Yeah, there's two super important things about what you just said that stand out to me. It's that your executive team is walking the walk.
Mm-hmm.
So, I need to pick up my kid and he walks out. That sets a huge example and takes the weight off of the team of saying, oh gosh, I have to leave, but is it okay? Well,
yes,
the team is doing it, so it's acceptable. So that
Mm-hmm.
that is huge for an employee to see. And then just giving the choice.
Yep. Yeah,
Some
we
of your-
all want to feel like we've got control over our lives.
Right.
And there are some jobs, quite frankly, that are better done in the office, or a client requires you to be in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the job, but it may not be the right job for you.
Right.
And there are other jobs where you can work pretty much wherever you are.
That's so fabulous. So I want to talk about, again, on this topic of returners and reentry, a perspective from the hiring side. advice for those returners looking to transfer their skills as maybe a stay-at-home mom or dad or caregiver, and now they're looking to kind of transfer that skill set in a way that makes them a positive addition to their workplace? Do you have
Yeah.
insight about, some guidance for those people?
Yeah, I think I'd start with the world really has changed, at least, during my career. It used to be if you had any gap in your resume at all, forget it. Sorry, you just go on the reject pile. I think now with COVID, with the global financial crisis a dozen years ago, with all kinds of things, people are recognizing that sort of this steady upward progression that remains unbroken forever isn't reasonable. It used to be when I first started hiring people 100 years ago, oh, well, they've only been at their company for 5 years and now they want to leave their job. They're not very loyal. And now I look at resumes and go, why have they been there 5 years? What's wrong with that? So
Yeah.
mind shifts really have changed. And
Mhm.
at least in some companies, and VTS is one of them. So some of it is recognize that the world is different in a lot of places. And
Right.
so learn about the company. Is it a place that is thinking progressively? Is it a place where you're going to feel at home because they are aligned with what matters to you? If you're a mom or anybody kind of re-entering the workforce for some reason that you had left it, and the company says, oh, I'm sorry, you have to have an unbroken track record. I don't think I'd want to work there because that's not a very progressive, thoughtful,
Yeah.
innovative place. And one of the beauties about the internet is there are so many ways to learn about companies, right? I mean,
Right.
you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Glassdoor. There are lots of different ways to find out what culture is really like, not just what they stick on
Right.
their own web page, but
Right.
what's really real. And some of this comes back to some self-reflection. What matters to me, and where am
Right.
I gonna not just get hired or fit, but where am I gonna thrive?
Right. Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. And you'll see, I think, especially in the past few years, companies like VTS that really care about hiring the best talent and the right talent, they're making this even more well known. So it's
Hmm.
even easier to find. That they're like, hey, come work for us. Look at what we're doing for our employees. So that's fabulous advice. So we've touched a bit on your policies and your benefits, but VTS is an incredible company, and you really pride yourself on being supportive and inclusive. So can you talk us through some of the policies, the benefits? You've talked a bit about the flexibility that VTS offers, not just parents, but all your employees who
Hmm.
are, trying to really get that work-life integration balance.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny, integration balance. We're all still trying to figure out what to call it, right?
Yeah.
After all these years. So that's a great example. And as we said, sort of the agency, the kind of choose your own adventure bit that we work with employees to work with their managers on. We've got really generous parental leave benefits, both for primary and secondary caregivers. And that really matters, particularly in the US, where you still, well, that's an entirely
Yes.
other conversation. We're very generous at VTS. One of the other parts that I like about our leave is we also give returning caregivers a month to get back into the swing of things. And so you can come back and for a month work at about 60%, get paid for 100%, but work out the kinks in the childcare
Yeah.
or whatever those arrangements are. So I think that's really helpful to particularly new parents coming back up home, back to the work. Yeah, I mentioned unlimited paid time off. We've got some amazing top tier health benefits for employees and families at a really moderate employee contribution. So people can afford to take good care of themselves and their families and stay healthy. We've worked hard to define career paths so that people understand if I start at this level and I do this, this, and this, then my next promotion is this, and my next promotion is this: we've got a real commitment to professional development. We try to do internal promotion cycles twice a year, and we just yesterday at our all hands announced this first half's class of promotees, and we've had people promoted from support positions to individual contributor positions, and we've had people promoted to senior vice president positions. And so the whole career development thing really matters.
Mm-hmm.
We give people annually 2 different stipends that I really like. One is for learning and development, and it's directed. I want to learn this, and so does this apply? I saw a request come in just yesterday from somebody who wants to continue her work in anti-racism thinking, and I found this course. Can I use my stipend for it? Yes. We also have self-directed wellness stipends, and that was really something that we increased during the pandemic. Can I buy an exercise bike? Can I use it for my gym membership? Can I take yoga classes? Yes, yes, and yes, because we want to kind of support the whole person.
Yeah, that holistic, all of those benefits just make me think about the holistic person.
Right.
And so when we go back to thinking about how do you find an employer that's right for you and you're right for them, those benefits really are telling of the kind of culture you're walking into and the kind of culture that exists at VTS and where your priorities lie, which is huge. I mean, that's what you want to know as an employer. So that's fabulous. And, just thinking about it from your perspective as, the chief people officer and kind of what you tell your people to do and what your managers are doing, what are your best tips for balancing career and family, particularly as somebody re-entering? So we've talked a bit about it, but kind of how do you instruct your managers to then help their team with success on that?
Right. So first off, throw the word balance out the window, because it'll never, I mean, if you say balance, it implies that there's some perfect state that you'll achieve. And if you're off, then there must be something wrong. The reality is, at any point in your life, or any day or minute or hour in your life, different things are gonna be taking weight. So recognize that. Be realistic. Superwoman is a fictional character, and so let's all be realistic. Maybe you can have it all, but probably not all at the exact same moment. And be gentle with yourself, and give yourself the grace to struggle, to fail, to know some days you just can't. And what do I do on those days? So that's about finding support outside of your family, somebody to talk to, somebody to vent with, somebody you can cry in front of. And then kind of my favorite, and this, I was chatting with a person who works with me, who has a young child, and she said her favorite is put your own mask on first, right? I mean, like they tell you, when the oxygen goes out on the airplane, don't help the person next to you until you've helped yourself. And what that's all about is, unless we've found ways to really strengthen and build our own foundations, we can't be of good service to the people around us. And she made me promise that I would not use the words self-care, because she said that sounds like something else I'm going to fail at, because I don't have time to schedule a massage and yoga babysitter and another thing to do. And she said, it's sometimes it's just about stop and breathe for 5 minutes, or go to Target without the kids and buy something for yourself, right? Because anything you can do to give yourself some more oxygen, you're going to help everybody around you, your colleagues, your friends, your family. So that's
so very truthful, personally and professionally, right? So just kind of leave us with, we still are going to answer some questions at the end of the session, but leave us with your words of advice for the people joining us today who are working towards achieving their career goals. What do you tell them?
So the imposter syndrome is real, and it hits women more than men, though I've got a great quote by Albert Einstein, who apparently suffered it himself. And so if Albert Einstein can feel like he's an imposter, we're all in really good company.
That's very true.
But the reality is, you're not. You're a smart, capable person. You work really, really hard, and you deserve respect and gratitude. And if you believe you deserve those things, you're going to insist on spending your time and your energy and your talents in an organization that gives those things to you. And if it doesn't, it's not worth it, because you're worth it.
That is so fabulous. That is so good. Where do we go from there?
I
That's
don't
like
know.
the best nugget of advice. I don't know where else to go. But we will take some questions from the audience now. Let me look over in the comments box. We have lots of comments. Okay, here's our first question. How is upward mobility in the company? Does VTS support transitioning roles within the company?
We have so I mentioned our recent performance process, which really spanned the whole gamut of the organization. We are routinely doing internal transfers. We try to post jobs internally and make sure people have the opportunity to move. When I joined VTS, we had an executive assistant, and the executive assistants report up through the people team, who said, I have a real interest in product. And so we moved her, and she moved into the product organization, and she was just promoted to a product manager. So,
wow.
That's just one example, and I'm just delighted for her.
That's really awesome. That's a huge example of upward mobility in a company. So let's see. Did you say unlimited time off policy? If so, how does that work? So sometimes people have these policies, but they're not user friendly. So talk us through kind of how you ensure people actually use it.
Well, I did say unlimited, but I also said with your manager, right? So it doesn't mean, Cassie, April doesn't feel good for me. I'm not going to be here.
We're not jetting off to Tahiti just yet for a month.
What we mean by it is, and in a lot of organizations, after you work 6 months, you get 3 days off, and then after you work a year, you get a whole week, and after 2 years, you get 2 whole weeks. We're saying we don't do that. You come to work and you say, look, I need next Friday off. Okay, take next Friday off. Now, if you came in and said, I need the Friday after that, the Friday after that, the Friday after that, we'd probably go, well, you really want this job? Because that's not a 4-day-a-week job.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is a partnership. And one of the other things I said is we hire adults, and we expect people to act like that. And if you bring your best professional self to work, we're going to do everything we can to support you and make sure you're successful.
I love that. That's such a great definition of what unlimited time off should look like, where adults use it, correctly. Let's see. I have another one here. Can you share an example of a time you failed and how you moved forward? You've probably never failed in your 30 years, right?
Many times. Give me a second, because I want to make sure I pick one of the one.
We want a good one. We want a really good failure.
Want a good one. Okay. All right. Here's one. So this was way back when I was working in retail, and I needed a company change, and did not do the right homework, and I wound up switching for what looked like a far better job, had a fancy title, kind of very prestigious retailer. And within the first week, I realized that my new boss and I were not in sync. We did not look at the world the same way. We did not look at how you handle professionals the same way. And and I knew immediately, right? But it's only been a week. I'm not going to quit. And after about, I don't know, a year, 15 months or so, it had not changed. He wasn't going to change. I wasn't going to change. And I remember I went to him, and I had rehearsed my resignation speech, and it was all of 45 seconds long, because he didn't have that much of an attention span. And I remember I started with, look, this isn't working for me. I don't think it's working for you. And then I said the rest of the 45 seconds, and I stopped, and he said, I don't know about all the rest of it, but you're right. It's not working for me. Like, okay, fine. So let's go. Yeah. So the big mistake was I didn't understand what I was getting into, and kind of got blinded by the glitz and the glamour. The recovery was I eventually moved on, and it's not all been good, but it was
Right.
better.
But a lesson learned too. I think we've kind of
Definitely a
all
lesson
had that
learned.
employer where we went, oh, this was maybe not a good
Yeah,
choice. Like you
exactly.
learn once you're in it, but maybe a lesson in really researching a company
Yes,
and making
yes.
sure you don't get blinded by the title or even the salary, but
Yep,
you really know what you're walking into all the way
yep,
around. So
yep,
fabulous advice.
exactly.
All right, next question. How does VTS purposefully work to combat ageism in the workplace, in hiring
Ooh.
and within their mid-level, entry-level workforce?
So I'm the representative of ageism, right? Um, it is so. So I think it's a really interesting question, because we are a tech company, right? And tech skews young and
Mm-hmm.
white and male,
Yep.
and yet, you know, they brought me in to run their people organization, and I clearly have got a whole lot of years of experience, gray hair, all of that. At the same time, or not at the same time, a couple years earlier, they brought in a CFO who is my age. We have an executive chairman who is my age, and so we are trying to skew the demographics up at the mid career. So that's at the senior level.
Mm-hmm.
At the entry level, I think we can become more conscious of it, and I know a lot of the TA team is here, and that's something for us to think about, because entry level, you generally think of people in fewer years of age, as well
Right.
as fewer years of experience. I think where we might have a really interesting opportunity is in the is in the mid career space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because am I all washed up at 40 or 50 or 60? And I think we have enough positive examples within the organization to say no, that's just not true.
Yeah.
We become um, I think where companies, and this is not specific about BTS because we haven't really talked about it as a team, but I think what companies sometimes will look at and go, well, you've got 20 years of experience, or do you have the same year of experience 20 times in the same
Mm-hmm.
job, right? Have you really
Mm-hmm.
learned and grown? And so that's
Right.
something I think for us to be more conscious of, and work to tease out a better job. But I'm happy to be the poster child for ageism or
It,
anti-ageism at
it's
VTS.
a representation, right? So it's still a representation in the company. So that's a step for sure. Let's see. Next question. What's your view on entrepreneurship on a resume? How does that go forward within the screening interview process?
So I was an entrepreneur before joining VTS. I had a whole lot of years in big public corporations, and then about 10 years ago, decided I had had enough of that and started my own consulting business, and actually got to know VTS. Um, Going on 3 years ago now, as a consultant. They brought me in to help with an acquisition they were
Mhm.
doing, and then brought me back. They brought me back in June of 2020 to help with the return to office project, because we were going to go back to the office Labor Day of 2020. That didn't happen, but I
Yeah.
stayed. So I think that if you can articulate your skills in a way that will matter to the organization, I don't necessarily care whether you come from a great big corporation, a small private startup, your own company. It's up to the candidate, though, to be able to do that translation. How can I talk about, this is what I've learned as an entrepreneur. These are the skills
Sure.
I've developed. These are the failures I've had. These are the successes I've had.
Yeah.
Not just, here, I ran my own business. You
Right.
company, figure out
Right.
what to do with me.
Right. And I think the same could go when we're talking about returners or we're talking about people pivoting into, the real estate industry. It's all about how you tell your story and how
Yep.
you articulate your skills, whether they come from being a caregiver or an entrepreneur or wherever you came from. It's not that the skills are good or bad or positive or negative. It's can you tell that story and connect those dots for a hiring manager or for a company to see your value like that.
Right. Right.
All right, next question. We have so many questions for this. So just hang on. We left a lot of time for questions though, so that's good.
That's great.
What do you recommend when an employer asks your salary range? Going too high, low, risks you not getting compensated appropriately?
So recognize that in some states that's illegal. So you got to be, do your research and know where you are and know what people can ask and not ask. And if anybody ever asks you a question that they shouldn't, whether it's about your age, your gender, your whatever, or your salary, and it is a prohibited question, run as fast as you can, because if they're doing that in the interview process, they are either uninformed or they don't care, and you don't want to work for any kind of company like that. I think more and more companies are getting used to, they can't ask, what did you make in your last job? Sure. I think more and more companies are getting used to, well, can you tell me what the company range is? And there are laws in some states that are becoming more prevalent about posting salary ranges so that there is more transparency.
Right.
I think particularly for women, because the gender pay gap is also real. We risk, if we say, well, this is what I used to be paid, or this is my expectation, we perpetuate being underpaid. And so I would lean on the side of, I'm sure, employer, you have a sense of what you want to pay for the job. Can you talk to me about what your range is?
Right. Get your range from the employer, not the other way around. Not provide range.
Right.
That's very smart. Next question. How do you find a suitable mentor when you have left the workforce after years of career progression to raise a kid and you want to soundboard about what the future on-ramp should be? Also, are you checking questions in the Q&A tab? Okay, we'll skip that part. But yes, suitable mentors.
So, as I began with, I've got a real commitment to sort of role modeling, mentoring, being available for other women, and have been fortunate in my life to have women like that. One of the great beauties of LinkedIn is that it's really easy to track down people you used to work with and to find them. And if you used to work with somebody and they, you took a step to go do something else, they continued on the other path, it's really fine to reach out and say, hey, I'm coming back to the workforce, I need to understand this. Can I just spend 30 minutes just picking your brain about it? You're not asking for an interview. You're not asking for a job. You're just asking for some thoughts. And, blind connections don't work because everybody's way too busy and you get a lot of spam and you're not real sure, are you real or are you trying to, sell me something? But genuine connections. And again, that's where LinkedIn can be really helpful, can really help you find the right people.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it goes back to your Madeleine Albright quote of be a woman that helps out other women.
Yeah.
It goes all ways. So however you can mentor somebody else in a space, do that and then seek out the same thing for yourself.
Yeah. And one of the things we did another thing we did for International Women's Day was we had a group come in and they talked about mentorship. And one of the people that spoke made, I thought, a brilliant point was, if somebody turns you down, don't judge them. They just might not be in the right place where they can mentor anybody. And it's don't look at it as it's about you, and don't judge them. You don't know what the path they're on is.
Sure.
And give them some grace as well.
Absolutely. I love that. Next question. Often women don't apply for jobs that may not have all of the qualifications for. How would you recommend applicants speak to lacking?
So I mean, that's true, right? I mean, there are studies and data that if you put up a bunch of job requirements, a woman's going to look and go, okay, I've got this. Oh, don't have that one. Okay, so I can't apply.
Right.
And a man will go, oh, I can spell the job title, I'm going to go apply for that one. So right? I mean, and it's just different. So I think that if it's about applying, lean into your confidence, lean into what you know. You can address the I don't have some of the skills, but here's how I would go about learning them. Or I don't have this skill, but I've got experience in this area. And depending upon what it is, it's what we were talking about a few minutes ago. If you can articulate how you can make it beneficial for the employer, you will get people's attention. Now, again, there are some skills that you got to start with, right?
Sure.
We're not going to hire an engineer for a senior software engineer who's never coded, right? And I don't care how good your story is, that's just not going to fly.
Yes,
but if it is, we want this experience, and you don't have this one, apply, lean into your confidence and the stuff that you do have.
I always think when I'm talking with some of the women in the program that I manage, they have a lot more skills than they give themselves credit for. And we sometimes as women don't recognize our own strengths until somebody says, wait a minute, I know you did that huge project. Like that was, next level. So similar to how studies prove that men just apply, women downplay their skills at an astronomical rate. So make sure that you're not doing that either, right? Would be some of the guidance.
Excellent point.
All right. What advice do you give to career changers, say educators who desire to move into the tech field?
Yeah. So I think that it's similar to what, we've said a couple times. It is, find the way that you can spin your story so that it is beneficial to an employer. I mean, VTS is a fabulous company, and I am just so delighted to be a part of it and to work with the amazing team that I get to work with. But at the end of the day, we're a company, and we're making software and we're selling software, and so explain to the recruiter how you can really help with that. It's we don't exist just to provide jobs for people. We exist to help match the right people with the right jobs. So be able to tell your story. Talk about how when I was teaching, I learned these skills about how to handle people. And so that's why I would be great in this customer service role.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Again, telling your story, matching those skills. So just because they came from a different industry does not mean they don't apply.
And it goes back to that earlier question about how do I find somebody to talk to, and how do I find somebody who's not the employer that I can practice some of this stuff with and say, I'm thinking about, I say it this way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I love that. Just a sounding board even. All right, let's go. Next question. Do you train your recruiters to not just automatically say no, but to take into consideration the gaps or the fact that they are business owners, but maybe looking for employment? I find recruiters are not always on the same page.
So one of the things that, so one of my prior jobs, I ran HR for a global executive search and staffing business. And one of the things that I learned there was the hard truth that external recruiters, if you're the candidate, you are not their client. You are not paying their bills. You are not paying their salary. The employers are. So they're going to always work for the employers. One of the things that I love about VTS is we've got a very robust talent acquisition team internally. And they really care. I mean, part of the reason that I'm here today is that one of our senior talent acquisition managers is deeply involved with the Mom Project. She asked me to do this. All of that is above and beyond the list of jobs we're asking her to fill. And so, I think you probably have a better chance working with internal organizations than external ones, and you probably have a better chance working with smaller, more nimble, more innovative organizations than very regimented, very large bureaucratic ones that are all about production.
Yeah, for sure. You can definitely find a more welcoming approach or a different path, kind of creating a path for you in some places that have some more flexibility to do that. Next, and I think final question for you. We'll take you off the hot seat in just a minute. Any advice for an entry-level web developer and
Ah,
designer straight out of college?
that's like the worst question to ask me.
Or maybe we can just say anybody straight out of college who is
Yeah.
looking to get in a career,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
I think it's similar to the other stuff we've been saying. Be realistic. You're probably not going to start at a vice president of design position. So
Sure.
be realistic about where you are. Be able to articulate, this is what I learned in school, and this is what my program taught me, and here's how this can apply to you, employer. Um, Talk to people, network, and do your research around the company, right? I mean, VTS, we don't hire animators, right? So if you might be the best animation student in your program,
Right.
but we don't hire animators, so I can't help you. So do your research.
Yeah, for sure. And really goes back to that LinkedIn. It's becoming easier and easier to have this online presence, and that's becoming the expectation versus having to like physically go out and network with somebody. So use
Yep.
that at all levels, whether you're
Yep.
out of college or reentry or pivoting 30 years in. I
That
think
is so
that's
true.
great advice. Well, that was our last question. And that concludes today's session. Thank you to our guest speaker, Margaretta Noonan, for joining us and sharing your story and your insight about VTS. It's been a pleasure having you. We hope that everyone in our audience has learned something today that they can take with them from this moment and beyond. As a reminder, a recording of this session will be made available to all of our attendees. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you at the next one. Have a great day.